Lil Kenny got ambushed in Nashville. But what's making this situation dangerous isn't just the shooting itself, it's the timing and the names quietly getting attached behind the scenes. Because right now, people are asking one question that nobody is answering directly. Was this connected to Yo Gotti's world? Or is this fallout from deeper Memphis pressure involving Big 30 and Pooh Shiesty's circles? And before you jump to conclusions, you need to understand how fast situations like this evolve in Memphis culture, because nothing starts where it ends. But to understand why Lil Kenny's name is even in this conversation, you can't start with the shooting. You have to go back into the environment he came from. Because in Memphis rap culture, artists don't just build music careers, they build perception networks. And perception is what decides how situations get interpreted later. Lil Kenny is not a mainstream chart-driven rapper. He operates in a space where music is tied heavily to reputation and street narrative. And once an artist enters that space, everything they say gets analyzed beyond music. Even lyrics become interpreted as statements. Even silence becomes interpreted as meaning something. And that's exactly how his name started circulating in multiple directions at once. Not because of one event, but because of overlapping interpretations. But here's where things start shifting, because one song changed how people started looking at him entirely. And that song didn't just create attention, it created tension. The track that started getting attention in discussions was Meep Meep. And according to online breakdowns, it contained references that people connected to Big 30's late cousin Nusky. Now, in any other music scene, that would just be classified as a diss record. But Memphis doesn't process things that simply, because in that environment, a deceased name in a diss record doesn't stay artistic, it becomes emotional, and emotional reactions always travel beyond music. And this is where things quietly escalate. Because once that interpretation spreads online, it doesn't stay controlled anymore. It starts attaching identity to identity and narrative to narrative. And that's when Lil Kenny's situation stopped being just about music. But that's not the only layer people started discussing, because once Memphis conversations expand, they rarely stay inside one circle. They start overlapping. And that's where Big 30 and Pooh Shiesty enter the wider discussion.
Feast your eyes, courtesy of the mob. You get what I'm saying? The show ain't stopped yet. We just begun. Brand new, blood red inside. Don't turn to the inside. On up to the roof, Batman, to the moon. Man, I'm gonna do 20 donuts right now. I ain't gonna do that.
Make a change. He ain't dead, but I got is in the Fed smoking Lil Wayne.
Yo, in the cell smoking Tunchi. My homies in the Fed smoking Nooski. Fly in front of his mama, they down this brother. 556 hitting that. I know a whacker, miss your ass stomach.
Big 30's name enters this conversation because of the Nusky connection. And in Memphis culture, the family ties are not separate from rap identity. They are part of it. So when Nusky gets mentioned in any controversial context, people automatically connect emotional ownership to Big 30's side, not as confirmed involvement, but as perceived association. And perception alone is enough to build narrative pressure. Pooh Shiesty enters this conversation from a different angle, not because of any confirmed action, but because of presence. In Memphis rap structure, some names represent influence zones rather than direct involvement, and Pooh Shiesty's name carries weight in that ecosystem. So when tension rises around Memphis artists, his name often appears in background discussions of possible connections, even without evidence. This is how narrative clustering works in rap culture. But all of this speculation becomes louder when the Nashville incident happens, because now the conversation stops being theoretical and becomes physical. Lil Kenny's vehicle was reportedly targeted in Nashville. Multiple bullet impacts were observed in circulating visuals online, while reports suggest he survived. And the meaning of the event is what changed everything, because in this culture, survival doesn't close a story, it opens a new chapter. And that's when the internet reactions split into multiple directions, because now people aren't just asking what happened, they are asking why his name keeps appearing across different Memphis narratives at the same time. And that question is where things become unstable, because instability in perception creates expansion, not resolution. But Here's the part people miss. None of these connections are officially confirmed. There are no legal statements linking Yo Gotti, Big 30, or Pooh Shiesty to this incident. But in rap culture, confirmation is not what drives narratives. Timing does, patterns do, interpretation does. And Yo Gotti's name enters this conversation from a structural angle, not because of direct involvement, but because CMG represents a major Memphis industry force. And whenever something happens in Memphis rap, people instinctively look for CMG-related historical context. This creates a perception loop where unrelated events start getting mentally connected. And once that loop forms, it becomes self-sustaining in online discussion. But even that is not the deepest layer, because the real intensity comes from what happens when multiple narratives overlap without a single confirmed explanation. And that's exactly the space Lil Kenny is in right now. Right now, everything remains unconfirmed. No official link exists between Lil Kenny's shooting and Yo Gotti, Big 30, or Pooh Shiesty. But perception doesn't wait for confirmation. It builds its own structure. And in Memphis, rap culture, once a structure forms, rarely collapses on its own. It evolves. And that evolution raises one final question. Is Lil Kenny simply caught in overlapping Memphis rap narratives, or is he inside a cycle that has already been moving long before this moment? Because in Memphis, stories don't start when people notice them. They start long before that. And they don't end when people stop talking. They continue until the next event reopens them. And right now, this story is still open.